So, what exactly is translational research? This is the way I like to think about it. It's research that neither meets the defining characteristics of purely applied research or the defining characteristics of purely basic research. So, it falls somewhere in between. So, with basic research, experimenters are focusing on basic process with the goal to further understand or identify basic principles of learning. In applied research, experimenters are applying these basic principles of learning to human behavior of social importance with the goal to change or improve behavior. So, with basic research, experimenters often target behaviors that are convenient to measure, and they select independent variables based on their relevance to theory. In applied research, experimenters typically select behaviors of social importance, and the goal is to improve the behavior. So, translational research is intended to bridge that gap between basic and applied research, and it does this in a variety of ways. So, I'm just going to give you a few examples. In one type of translational research, basic findings in the laboratory are extended to clinical populations or problems, but it's a first step. And so there's something about those studies that don't completely fall under those defining characteristics of applied research. So, for example, the participants might not be the clinical population of interest, but instead other types of folks, such as college students. And another example, the dependent variable might not be the clinical problem of interest, such as self-injury, but instead something that's convenient and easy to measure initially, such as button pressing. And so people have studied the matching law in clinical populations after studying the matching law in the basic laboratory, or they have looked at things such as factors that influence extinction bursts or resistance or resurgence with clinical populations after studying those in the basic laboratory. Another type of translational research involves bridging applied work back to the laboratory. And so in this case, you might have studies where they create laboratory analogs of applied problems. So for example, researchers have studied say-do correspondence in pigeons by setting up a laboratory preparation for that. Or they have looked at the effects of different reinforcement magnitudes on response rate, but using things like college students, switch presses, and food. Researchers have looked at basic processes that are relevant to applied technologies, such as ways to increase tolerance to delays, but using college students in button pressing rather than clinical populations and problems. There's a final type of translational research that doesn't typically fall into these categories, but I think it qualifies as well. And that is research that bridges from applied research to clinical application. And what I'm talking about here is evaluating variables, methods, or procedural refinements that are specific to technology transfer and demonstrating that these technologies can be effective when implemented within the context of routine service provision. So an example of this might be looking at the outcomes of a treatment such as functional communication training, but when it is implemented across the full day and in a variety of different contexts, rather than how it is typically evaluated in applied research, and that is during short, say 15-minute sessions in a controlled environment. So I hope that this gives you a little bit of a better understanding about translational research.